Hello everyone, welcome back to my next video. Today we are going to discuss about factoring. This comes in fourth module. If you have not seen bills discounting video, kindly go back to the previous video, watch bills discounting video before watching factoring. Then only you can understand what is factoring. Shall we go and start discussing about factoring? Now let us start. Let me quickly explain you the concept what I already explained in the previous video. Let me quickly explain you. There are two parties, A and B. One is seller, another one is buyer. I explained in the previous video. A is a businessman. For example, I am businessman. I am selling goods on credit. To the buyer. I am selling goods to buyer. There is no single buyer, there will be multiple buyers. Just for the example, I have given only one buyer. Okay, and here comes the invoice. I need to give an invoice which is called bill or invoice. Okay, this is a proof that I sold goods to B, whether cash basis or credit basis. This invoice should be given to B, buyer, and the buyer, if purchased goods from A on credit, accepts the bill or invoice, and in case if A requires money, is in need of money, then he approaches a financial institution, might be a bank, insurance company, or any non-banking financial company. In case if it is bill, it is discounted. Bill or invoice, it is discounted. This is called bills discounting. We are discussing about factoring. In this case, the financial institution, say for example, bank, will buy the bill from A, the seller, from me. Try to understand, he will buy. Who will buy? Bank will buy. What? Invoice or bill from me, seller. This is called factoring. Okay, so the bank or financial institution is called factor, and the services he is providing is called factoring. Now let us move further. What is factor? Who is a factor? So who is a factor? Before we understand the definition of factoring, one has to clearly understand who is a factor. Let me explain you. The word factor has been derived from the Latin word facer, which means to make or to do. So factor is an agent. Might be a banking or an insurance company or any NBFC, any other NBFC, who is engaged in financing the operations of certain companies or financing wholesale or retail trade sales through the purchase of, the purchase here, he buy, bank, factor, buy, purchase the accounts receivable from me and the seller. So factor is a person who is predominantly known as bank, buys all my debts. He is called factor, and the services he is providing is called factoring. Try to understand. Now let us understand what is factoring. This is the definition of factoring. According to V.A. Avadhani, defined factoring as: factoring is a service of financial nature involving the conversion of credit bills into cash bills. So what factor does? What factor does? He converts the credit bills into cash bills. As I told in the previous video, even in bills discounting also, the bank will convert the illiquid assets into liquid assets. I have debts. Okay. I have debts. This is considered as current assets. Anyhow, it is current asset to me, but I need money. Money is blocked in debts. I need money urgently. What I does? I go to bank, who is a factor. He buys all my debts. And give money to me. So I realize these current assets into cash. I can make use of this cash in any other purpose in my business. This is called factoring and the job of factor. I hope you understand. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. You can put a comment in Google Classroom. So this is called factoring. By doing so, I'll be relieved. I sold all my debts. Factor bought all my debts. I'm relieved. I can easily do my business. I don't have any tensions whether my customers give me my amount back or no. I'm totally relieved. Okay, this is called factoring. Let me clearly explain you the process of factoring. This is called the process of factoring. All my dear student friends, listen carefully. This figure shows the process of factoring. Client, customer, and the factor. There are three parties involved in the process of factoring. This is me, client. I am a businessman. I sell goods on credit to my customer. When I sell goods on credit, then invoice I have to give him, and he will accept the invoice bill and give back that invoice, and this serve me as a proof. This serve me as a proof. This invoice will be given. This will be submitted to factor, and the factor purchase all my debts. I sell all my debts to factor, and I'm relieved. I can concentrate on my business. I can concentrate on my production, marketing strategies, business strategies. I'm relieved whether my customer give back money to me or no. Factor will take care. Immediately I'll get the payment of 80% immediately. The balance will be given later. Then I will instruct my customer to pay amount to factor after the expiry of the maturity period. The customer will repay to factor. In case if the customer is adamant and not responding, then the factor is a very specialized person in credit management. He know how to receive money from customer. He know all the means to put a case against customer, and he will go till court and receive money from customer unless a customer put a IP. If he put the IP, no one can do anything. This is the process of factoring. I hope you understand. If you have any doubt, you can put a comment in Google Class. Now, let us move on to the further next. Now, after discussing about factoring, the process of factoring, one can clearly understand bills discounting. One can clearly understand about the bills discounting. Let me clearly explain you the difference between bills discounting and factoring. Basis for comparison, arrangement, bills discounting, factoring. Bills discounting, the entire bill is discounted and paid when the transaction takes place. Under factoring, the factor gives maximum part of the amount as advance when the transaction takes place and the remaining amount at the time of settlement. In case of bills discounting, after deducting the charge or the interest, the remaining balance will be immediately given to the client or the borrower. For example, me, I'll approach bank. In case of bills discounting, I will immediately get the payment. But in factoring, of course, I will get immediate payment, but only 80% payment will be immediately provided. 80% payment will be immediately provided. The remaining will be provided after the settlement. After the settlement, once the factor receives the money from my customer, then only the remaining portion will be, or the remaining balance will be collected and given by the factor to me after deducting some fee. Now, after discussing arrangement, let us go to the next one. Parties. How many parties are involved in bills discounting? Drawer, drawee, payee. Drawee, payee, drawer. Drawer is me. I am the businessman. I am the seller. Drawee is the buyer. Payee is the bank, to whom I have discounted the bills. In case of factoring, factor, debtor and client. In this factoring, I am the client, I am a businessman. I sell goods on credit to my customer who is called a debtor to me. And I sell the invoice, all my debts to factor, he is a factor. In case of bills discounting bank, in case of factoring, same bank act as a factor. I hope you understand. Next come type. Bills discounting is recourse only. Factoring is recourse and non-recourse. I will explain you what is recourse and non-recourse while explaining the types of factoring. Now, governing statute. The Negotiable Instrument Act 1881 governs bills discounting, and there is no such specific act which governs factoring. Financiers' income. Financiers means the bank or any financial institution which provides services to me in case of bills discounting or factoring. This financier's income. Discounting charges is the financial income, or interest is the financial income in case of bills discounting. In case of factoring, financiers get interest for financial services and commission for other allied services. Commission for other allied services also will be given to factoring as a financier's income, because factoring doesn't mean only discounting the bill, purchasing the bill and collecting the amount from the debtor and handing over to me. Factoring services include more than this. I'll explain all this later. Next, last one, assignment of debts. Here, the bills discounting, there is no assignment. There is no assignment. But in case of factoring, there is assignment. What do you mean by this? In bills discounting, there is no buy and sell transactions between the client or the businessman or the seller, between seller and bank. But in case of factoring, there is buying and selling. The factor buys the debts from the seller. So factor will take complete responsibility of collecting money. So there is assignment of debts. This is the difference between bills discounting and factoring. Now let us move on to the next one, that is functions of factoring. The first function of factoring is maintenance of sales ledger. A factor maintains sales ledger for his client. An invoice is sent by the client to the customer, a copy of which is marked to the factor. The client need not maintain any individual sales ledger of his customers with him. All the information, complete sales ledger of my customers will be maintained by factor himself. This is the very important function of factoring. This is the first one. Next, second one is collection of accounts receivable. Under factoring arrangements, a factor undertakes the responsibility of collecting the receivables for his client, because the factor buys debts, all my debts. Okay, he will buy, so the factor becomes the owner of my debts. I am no longer concerned to my debts. I need not scratch my head. Factor will take all the responsibilities to collect debts from my customer. So he undertakes to collect the debts from my customers. Thus, the client firm is relieved of rigorous of collecting debts and is thereby enabled to concentrate on improving the purchase, production, marketing and other managerial aspects of the business. With the help of trained manpower backed by infrastructural facilities, a factor systematically undertakes follow-up measures and makes timely demand in the debtors to pay amounts. Okay, so this is the second very important function. And the next one, third, credit control and credit promotion. Factor is a specialized and experienced person in credit management. I am a businessman. I am specialized in production function, marketing strategies, doing business. I am specialized in this. I am innocent. I don't know anything about credit management. I don't know who is my customer. What is the credit worthiness of my customer? Can I rely upon him or no? If I sell my products to him, will he repay to me later or no? I don't know anything about that. So in this case, I opt the services of factoring, and he provides me the specialized services and do the credit control and protect me from credit indebtedness, credit problems. Okay, so this is credit control and credit protection. And the next one is, this is the third one, and the next one is fourth one, advisory functions. At times factors render certain advisory services to their clients. Since factor is a specialized person, he provides the advisory functions. He study the economic conditions, trends in the market, understand the financial system and recommend me what to do, what not to do, which customers are good, which customers are not good, which customers I have to rely upon, which customers I should not rely upon, how much credit I have to sanction, how much credit I should not sanction, which time I have to sanction the credit, which times I should not sanction the credit. Everything will be suggested to me by factor, because he is specialized in analyzing and understanding the financial system. So these are the functions of factoring. I hope you understand. If you don't have any doubts, I am very happy. If you have doubts, you have every right to put a comment in Google Classroom. Now, the last topic of this factoring is types of factoring. Let me briefly explain all this. The first one is full factoring. Under full factoring arrangement, a factor renders services of collection of receivables and maintains sales ledger, and he provides the complete range of services ranging from analyzing the creditworthiness of my customer, maintaining the sales ledger, providing me credit control, giving me credit protection, everything. That's why it is called full factoring. It provides me the complete services, full range of services. This is called full factoring. And the next one, second one, try to listen this second and third one carefully. This is very important. Second one, recourse factoring. What is recourse factoring? In this type of factoring, the factor does not provide any protection to the client against a customer's failure to pay debts. This is called recourse factoring. Try to understand carefully. Under this recourse factoring, I am businessman and my customer is B. If the customer B has run away, he has not paid me anything, not even single rupee. Okay, the factor will not do anything. He is helpless. He will come back to me and receive the amount from me. I am not protected. Okay, this is called recourse factoring. And third one, non-recourse factoring. In this case, I am totally relieved. I am totally protected. Even in case if my customer B has put IP, factor will not come to me. He will not come to me. He will bear the risk. I am totally protected. That is the main reason why in recourse factoring, the commission charge is less. In non-recourse factoring, the commission charge is more. This is very important. Next, coming to fourth one, maturity factoring. This type of factoring involves the time period of invoice. There is an arrangement between me. I am A. There is arrangement between me and my factor. We will fix some time. For example, 3 months or 2 months or 1.5 months. Within this month, the factor will collect money from my customer and hand over to me. This is called maturity factoring. And the maturity factoring or the maturity date doesn't do anything with the invoice maturity. The invoice maturity might be 3 months or 2 months, whatever is the invoice maturity. The maturity means the time period. What time period I and my factor agree. Okay, within that time period, the factor will receive the money from B and hand over to me. This is called maturity factoring. The notes is provided. If you have any doubts, you can refer my notes, you can understand it. Advance factoring. In this kind of factoring, factor is prepared to pay for debts in advance of receiving the payment due from the customer. So before collecting anything from the customer, my customer, in advance factoring, the factor will provide complete amount to me. This is called advance factoring. Coming to undisclosed factoring. Under this undisclosed factoring, my customer B doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know I have entered in the contract of factoring. I have the factor, and the factor is sending all the messages to B. B thinks that I am sending messages to B, but my factor is sending all messages to B. After the maturity period, after the expiry of the contract invoice date, the B gives money to me. He will not know that I entered the transaction with me and my factor. This is called undisclosed. It is not disclosed to my customer B. Hope you understand. Coming to the invoice discounting. Invoice discounting is nothing but bills discounting. There is no difference between bills discounting and invoice discounting. Coming to the next one, buyer-based factoring. Try to understand this carefully. It has some logic. Buyer-based factoring. So far, what factoring I explained? I explained from seller-based factoring, seller point of view. I am the seller and he is the buyer. If I enter the contract with F, factoring, the factor will work from my point of view, seller. In this buyer-based factoring, it is reverse, totally opposite. The buyer approach the factor. He asked the factor to give some guarantee that he is going to buy from me, seller. Then the factor will act on behalf of buyer. Then the buyer will come to me and buy the product on credit. I will sell the product to B, my customer, seeing that the factor is behind him. Even though if my customer put IP, insolvency petition, the factor will give me amount because factor is working on behalf of buyer. He has given guarantee. So I will sell goods with confidence to B. This is called buyer-based factoring, which is reverse to seller-based factoring. Almost all factoring services are seller-based factoring. So this is all about today's topic. If you have any doubts, you can call me or you can put a comment in Google Classroom. Have a nice day. If you have not subscribed, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye bye.